In today's video tutorial, we are going to do Tunisian crochet, and I've started us off with 10 chains. And for our first row, we're going to work in the back bar. So if you turn your chain around, you'll see at the back there is a little bar that runs through the middle of your chain, and that is through that little bar that we're going to make our first row stitches. So we're going to skip the first back bar and go into the second back bar, and all we're going to do for row 1 is to pull up a loop. So you insert your hook behind the back bar and you yarn over and pull up a loop. Now, I always find it a little bit tricky to insert my hook through the back bar, but trust me, the struggle is worth it because you will end up with a very neat bottom edge, which is what we're after. And you will see that most Tunisian crochet patterns will actually instruct you to make your first row stitches through the back bar. So for Tunisian crochet, each row consists of two parts. There is something called a forward pass, and then there is a return pass. So the forward pass is what we are currently doing. That's where we pick up stitches or loops on our hook. And the return pass, we work those stitches off or get rid of them, if you will. So that is basically what gives Tunisian crochet its unique look. It has an appearance that's much more similar to knitting and doesn't have that traditional crochet look, but it is made with a crochet hook. If you're working with a limited number of stitches like we do today, you can get away with a normal crochet hook, but if you want more stitches for your project, you will need a longer hook, which is then called a Tunisian crochet hook. And there we go. We should now have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 stitches, which is exactly the same amount that we started off with in our chains. All right, and there you can see the nice and neat bottom of your work. And now for the return pass of row 1, we're going to yarn over and chain 1, which means that we're just pulling it through that very first hook. That's a chain that we've created. And for the rest of our return pass, we're just going to yarn over and pull through 2 loops at a time. And that is all we do. So we work off our stitches in 2s by doing a yarn over and pulling through 2 loops at a time. And that is all we do for the return pass. And until we have only 1 loop remaining on the hook. So this completes row 1, and that is what your work should look like. Your second row will be much easier. Now we are going to work in these or behind these vertical bars that are formed at the front of our work. So we're going to skip the very first vertical bar, which is this one on the right, and we're going to start by inserting our hook behind the second vertical bar. And for the forward pass of row 2, we just yarn over and pull up loops. And once again, if you started with 10 chains, you should end after your forward pass with 10 loops on your hook, and that's how you know you've picked up all of the stitches that you should. So for the very last stitch, I just want to show you, it's easy to miss. We should now have 9 loops, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So the very last one, we have to make behind this vertical bar. So this stitch over here is your vertical bar. But if you only put it through the vertical bar like we've done before, it will create a very loose edge or even holes on the side of your work. So the trick is to actually, if you turn your work, you'll see that same stitch loops around and it creates a little loopy there. Sorry, it's a little bit clearer to see. So the trick is to actually insert it not only behind the back bar, but also through the same piece of yarn that's looped back up, so that you've got both those strands on your hook, and that's how you pick up the very last loop or the 10th loop on your hook. And that was the forward pass for row 2. Now for the return pass, we always chain 1. That's our first chain, and for the rest of the return pass, we work the stitches off in 2, so we yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, until we only have 1 loop on the hook left. You'll see that Tunisian crochet has a tendency to curl quite a bit, so you will have to block your work or add a border that will help flatten it out, but it's such a pretty stitch. I'm sure you'll find that it's worth doing that little bit of extra work. Okay, so there we go. That's row 2 completed, and I'm just going to do one more repeat of the forward pass so that I can just show you once again that nifty trick to create a neat and sturdy left edge of your work. So we now have 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 loops on our hook. So for the very last one, this is the vertical bar we're going to go behind. If you turn your work, you'll see this very same piece of yarn looping back, and we are going to insert our hook through both the front and back bar piece of that yarn. There we go. So both strands on your hook, and that's where you pick up your very last stitch. And for your return pass, chain 1, and now work off your stitches in 2s. So we just pull through 2, yarn over, and pull through 2, and now the curling is getting a little bit in our way. Right, and that is all there is to it. So it takes a bit of practice to see where your stitches are, but that is all there is to Tunisian crochet, is literally just repeating this row 2, the forward pass and the return pass, and that is what your work will look like in the front. And in the back it has a almost like a knitted appearance as well. And that's all there is to it.